Grandmaster Praggnanandhaa is analyzing the position from the black side. He's setting it up firstly at the Freestyle Chess 2025 in Las Vegas. His opponent is Magnus Carlsen, and a super important game for Pragg because if he manages to win this, he will equalize the score. He first started off with a win against Magnus in 10 plus 10, and then in the second game, Magnus struck back in 5 plus 2. He lost the first game, and now this is the second one. So if Pragg loses or draws this, he then loses this match. But if he manages to win, he will enforce the Armageddon. So a huge game, a lot at stake, with the pieces being placed knight, rook, bishop, bishop, king, rook, knight, queen. And Pragg is thinking, what should be his first move? Should he open up the queen here? Should he open up the bishop here? Should he open up this bishop from that side? Should he play the central pawn and open up this bishop? Many possibilities here as Pragg tries to spend time alone. Players get 5 minutes before the blitz game and they have to decide on what their strategy would be. Of course, not at all easy, considering that they are seeing this position for the first time, and there are no discussion partners here with Pragg because the others have finished their games, their matches. And look at Pragg kind of analyzing that if perhaps Magnus opens up the queen here, he could potentially put the pawn. And what about Magnus? Well, Magnus is lying down in his couch and looking at the chessboard on the screen. I think Magnus just basically is saying to himself that I don't want to be too hard on myself. I want to do things that I feel relaxed. I feel like I'm at home because that is where my best chess comes out. So while Magnus takes his chair, Pragg moves towards the board. These two have had some brilliant, fierce encounters, and the headphones. Here Magnus gives Pragg's headphones to him and puts on his own here, and now the players adjust their pieces. I will be very curious to see what Magnus opens the game with. Which move will he choose? The players zone in to the game. And the viewers are super excited for this encounter. Praggnanandhaa has played very well in this tournament. His only loss came against Fabiano Caruana, where he actually was eliminated there from the upper bracket. But apart from that, he's been amazing. And Magnus has faced his strength. But Magnus, as always, has struck back. And now, let's see how this one goes. A handshake, and off we go. G3 played here by Magnus, opening up the queen. Pragg takes his time a bit. And let's see what move he comes up with. Maybe B6 to put the bishop. He goes B5, F4 played. The bishop comes out to B7, attacking the queen here. Very important moment. Do you go knight to F3 to block? He goes E4. And now is F5 even possible here? I guess it is. I guess it is possible for Pragg to push his pawn to F5. He goes C5 in the spirit of Sicilian. And Magnus now has to decide how to place his pieces. Should he get his bishop to F3, knight to E2? That is one formation. Maybe he gets his knight to B3, another possible move. He goes D3, keeping everything open right now. None of the pieces have come out, but Pragg is quickly developing both his bishops on this long diagonals. Let's see what Magnus comes up with now. Bishop E3 seems logical. He goes queen G2. And now knight to C7. f5 is definitely worthy of consideration. Knight comes out to f3. And Pragg now has to decide what move is he going for. f5 still remains a very enticing option. There's also knight at 6, which is interesting, to prepare f5. And maybe there's g6 to open up the queen. So all these possibilities, different possibilities lying there, as Pragg takes his time. And rightly so, because if he doesn't play his pieces out well, he can get positionally outplayed, because white has a very strong center here. You can also strike in the center with d5, and then after e5, well, the position is complicated. So Pragg also has central pawn move d5 in the position. He goes h5, and Magnus plays his queen to e2. Interesting. Pragg's move h5, very interesting. Magnus moving his queen away. And Pragg cannot really go h4 because of knight to h4 there. Pragg is actually taking a lot of time on the clock. He's already 30 seconds behind Magnus before this move, and in this move he's already taken close to another 30 seconds. I think Pragg is not really feeling the comfort here. He goes d5. Very interesting choice. He could have gone knight at 6 here. Maybe possible, but d5 and now e5, I believe, seems like a logical move here. But then knight at 6, knight f5 can come in. So d5 is trying to fight for squares. Knight to b3 played. Not so sure about what this move is all about, but I guess after take, you can weaken the central pawn on e4. And Pragg takes on e4. I believe Magnus will take back de. And now c4 seems like a very, very good move. There's also knight f6. But then e5 does look dangerous. He goes c4. Knight jumps into d4. Magnus plays his knight into the center of the board. And Praggnanandhaa goes h4. He strikes on the king side. You can't take with the knight. The knight in the center is hanging. So Pragg playing on both wings. Fantastic. And Magnus plays pawn to c3, defending the knight on d4. Takes. And now the queen moves into h3, attacking the pawn on g3 here. An important moment. Does Magnus panic here, or does he find the best move in the position? Not easy. He goes knight to f5. Wow. That's a very aggressive move. And Praggnanandhaa's g7 pawn is hanging. He can't defend it with g6, because then there's always knight g5 attacking the queen, knight g7 check. So knight to f5, and Pragg is taking his time, rightly so. He's put under immense pressure. He goes g6. Whoa. Insane. I thought he'll play knight e6 there, but he's gone g6. Now the knight is attacked. Knight g7 check is possible, but the king moves to d8 and the knight would be trapped on g7. Magnus assessing if there are any tactical opportunities in that direction, because it's natural to move there in that direction with your move, but so sure. He goes knight to g5, attacking the queen. The queen moves back to h8. Because the queen was attacked. Now you bring your knight back. He goes knight d4. Is that losing a pawn? Take. Queen takes. And now bishop e3, and white would have excellent compensation. But knight d4, Praggnanandhaa, instead of taking this pawn, goes long castle. Wow! He's just putting even more pressure here on the d4 knight. Magnus thinking about bolstering the knight with bishop e3, but just stopped in his tracks. He was like, is that the best move that I can play? Because then my opponent could very well play f6 next. And Magnus does play his bishop to e3. Can we go f6? Because then, oh, there's knight e6, forking. So yeah, have to be careful here. And Pragg is thinking about his move. I believe the best one is to bring the knight out to f6, attacking e4, and after attacking the knight, knight jumps into d5. And so here Pragg is unable to find his continuation. Wonder what will he come up with. He's thinking still. Oof, he's gone down below a minute for sure here. And he plays his pawn to e5 with just 38 seconds on the clock. It's not the best move. Magnus very quickly chops it off. Queen e5. And now knight takes f7 with a fork. And maybe the best move now is to take bishop e4, bishop c2, takes, knight takes, and somehow black will be okay here, but also white is clearly better. So knight f7, Pragg takes the pawn with a check. The bishop comes back attacking the queen. Queen h2. And now Magnus not so sure how to continue here. Maybe there is queen g4 check. I'm pretty sure that Magnus wants to finish it off cleanly. He takes the knight. He takes the rook here. His opponent's rook. And Pragg is super confused with what should he take. He decides to take with the king, but this is the final blunder and Magnus has a huge move now. Knight e6 check. Forcing knight takes e6, otherwise you lose the rook. And then bishop takes b6 check. And he wins this. So knight e6 played here by Magnus, and Praggnanandhaa resigns. A beautiful finish here. I think this position was really nice for Magnus to enjoy his openings. And with this, he has managed to beat Praggnanandhaa with a score of 3-1. His next opponent is Arjun Erigaisi. The arbiter tells Magnus, and yeah, a huge win for Magnus Carlsen to beat Praggnanandhaa, and he's confidently moving towards the third place finish in this tournament as he beats one set of opponents after another.